Okay, so we got a leaky diff here. This is on the back of a 13 Nissan Frontier, but this sort of applies to everything as far as this differential vent goes. Should have a vent. Every differential pretty well has one. That's just so that when the thing gets hot inside, your oil and the air inside expands as you're driving down the highway. Things get hot, and it's got to vent that pressure somewhere. And if the vent gets stuck closed, which is sort of a common thing in rusty areas, well, the pressure builds up and it ends up leaking out past seals. So in this case, it looks like the pan, or the cover, sorry, on the back of the diff was sealed with some silicone, and it's obviously been leaking. So I checked the vent, it was stuck closed. Same thing applies, even though this is a straight axle on a truck. If you have something with independent suspension, with CV axles and axle seals, the same thing's gonna happen. So just freed up this vent, but now this silicone seal has been compromised, so I'm gonna take the cover off, clean it, reseal it, put new gear oil in it. With just a differential with CV shafts and axle seals, sometimes you can just free up the vent and the leak will stop. Just clean it off, keep an eye on it, top the fluid back up to where it's supposed to be. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a socket and pull this pan off. Okay, so we got a plug up here, cleaned all the crap out of it. Looks like it's a 14mm hex. Got one there. Fits in there nicely. And then the bottom drain plug is a 10mm hex. And that goes in here. A lot of guys say that it's a good idea to undo the fill plug before the drain plug in case it seized for whatever reason. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. And then once you get the oil out of it and you want to pull this cover off, there are 14mm bolts around here. And there is also one 12mm bolt at the top that holds one of the emergency brake cables on. So we'll go ahead and break this free. It's always a good idea that you clean off all the stuff that's out of the drain and fill plugs so that you get good engagement with your hex keys. I know on Toyotas they use 10mm for drain and fill plugs. And a lot of times they get a lot of rust and stuff inside of them, and if you don't get enough depth with the hex socket, it will strip them out. Another good thing is to clean all the stuff off around it before you pull the plug out too. And then that way it doesn't fall inside the differential. We want to keep this thing as clean as we possibly can. You don't want dirt and stuff getting in there. That does not look very pretty. That's supposed to be gear oil. As you can see, it sort of looks like caramel syrup, chocolate milk. You can tell, you get that color from a lot of moisture that gets in the diff. And, well, how does the moisture get in the diff? Well, a couple ways that can happen. Either the vent is stuck and it can't evaporate the moisture out once it gets hot. So it builds up and builds up, condensation over time. You're gonna get a lot of moisture build up inside there. Another thing that I've seen happen is Toyota and Nissan both like to just put the diff vent right on top of the diff or on the axle tube. And guys will drive however far with their boats, tow them to the dock, back in, and after towing, the diff's nice and hot, back it in to launch the boat, and as soon as it hits the cold water, it gets sucked right into the vent, And I've seen lots of trucks that come in that are full of water. So that's a thing that happens. We got a gasket here. Does not appear to be a crush style gasket. Looks like just a regular aluminum style gasket. See if I can find a part number and throw that down in the description below. And this differential runs 75W90 synthetic gear oil. Do you remember if the other diff ran the same thing? I think either or no, there was only one option for this truck.
Yeah.
So it's always good to make sure you know what oil it takes. Always put the right stuff in. And it doesn't really pertain to this truck, but some trucks have limited slip differentials. They take a special additive as well. That's one 12mm bolt to get this emergency brake cable off of there. I believe that bracket's welded to the cover. I could be wrong, but that's just what it looks like. So I like to leave one bolt sort of just barely in there so that when you take all the bolts off, the cover just doesn't fall right off. Usually they're stuck on there, but it's good practice to get into. The holes on this housing are sealed, so they're not open on the backside, which is nice because it keeps any rust and stuff like that out of the threads, keeps them from getting stuck. So I'm gonna have to grab a ratchet to get to those top ones. Okay, so I got a fairly sharp little pry bar that I've ground the end down on and try to sneak in behind this cover. Just like that. If it's really stuck on there, don't be like jamming that thing in. You don't want to bend the cover or distort it in any way, otherwise you may have a leak. So came off fairly easily though. We're gonna see what this thing looks like on the inside. Hopefully it's in half decent shape. I'm actually gonna try to get some of this crap off of here before I pull this off. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. A lot of times if the vehicle's been sitting for a long time and you have moisture in there, you can see the rust that's building up on those spider gears. That's exactly what happens. Rust will build up on the bearings, and it's only a matter of time before the bearings go out. So, yep, you can see the contact surfaces of the gears where it's been touching and there's no rust. It's worn that off. But this thing's definitely had moisture in it for an extended amount of time. It's been sitting, and that rust has been just accumulating on all the surfaces. It's not nice.
No shit.
Yep, just using the parts washer here to clean all this stuff up. I know not everybody watching this video is gonna have a parts washer, but if you don't, you can just scrape all this stuff off. Maybe you don't have a bunch of undercoating on there. Brake cleaner works pretty good. All right, so we got the all the undercoating and stuff off. Now I'm just gonna clean up this surface. Go clean up the surface on the housing, and then we're gonna wash that housing out, get all that milky oil out of there get ready for the fresh oil. One thing that I like to do is when you're cleaning, like scraping the stuff off of here, and for guys that work in a shop, most likely you got one of these cookies. It's for cleaning aluminum and different metals without actually scoring it or taking any material off. I put a rag over this because we don't want all that crap getting inside the diff. We want to keep that as clean as we can. And then, yeah, I'm just going to clean this up. Once that's clean, we're going to wash out all that nasty milky oil and get that all cleaned out. Okay, so I went and I grabbed a gasket. Of course, that light's not going to work on there. I grabbed a gasket. It's actually from a Toyota truck, but it is damn near the same size. Outside dimensions are 23.97 millimeters. Inside dimensions are 18.12 millimeters. And yeah, now's the time to clean all the plugs. I'm going to stick the drain plug, or the drain plug back in, and then we're going to go ahead and put some silicone on the pan, or the cover. Keep calling it a pan. Same thing, holds the oil in. Those do not need to be, I have a big bar for that plug. You do not need to crank those on very tight. I should check the torque spec on it, but I'm sure it's like, I don't even know, 23 foot-pounds maybe, something like that. I'll check and let you know in a minute. Okay, I'll go ahead and put this on now. Silicone gaskets, it's always less is more type deal. So you just get some on there. Doesn't have to be a huge amount, and then we're just going to smear it around. All right, so got the spec for the drain and the fill plug, 32 foot-pounds. And then all of the bolts here are 26 foot-pounds. And on this one here, there's no gasket, so I'm gonna get, I don't have any liquid sealant, but I'm actually just gonna put some of that thread tape on there just to keep it sealed up. I'm gonna go ahead and tighten these all down now. Didn't show a sequence in which they need to be tightened down, so I'm just gonna snug them down and work my way around. My socket. Okay, so I went ahead and just torqued all those down, 26 foot-pounds.
And that e-brake is up there too.
Yeah, and there's a 12mm bolt that just goes up above there that we undid right for the emergency brake cable. So I just snug that down. I'm not too worried about looking up torque for that. And it also says 32 for the drain plug, but I don't know like what it would bottom out on or stop at, so I'm sort of skeptical. But once you guys have these out, now is the time to clean them, right? And nice and clean threads. Now I'm going to grab some thread tape. We grabbed some of this Castrol Syntrax. It's limited slip. This is not limited slip, but that's okay. It says it can work in conventional and limited slip differentials. This diff's actually nice because there's nothing in your way. Nothing worse than filling up like a front diff on a different vehicle and there's absolutely no way to get anything up there. You need some sort of pump with like a hose.
So we need to put 1.6 liters.
Yeah. How many? I guess we just let that run out. Yeah, so we got 1.6 liters filled up in there. And that's right to the top. So once it slows down, pretty well stops dripping, you can go ahead and stick your plug in. And I'm curious to see if I can actually get it to torque down to 32 foot-pounds. Yeah, that's the right one. I feel like that thing's just gonna go right through, so we're gonna leave it at that. It's not coming out. All right, I just gotta remember to get that one bolt that's up top for the emergency brake cable and we're good to go. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and keep on working hard.